Hello, my friend. The world of magic, filled with legends and ancient tales, is opening its gates once again. Tonight, in the Gryffindor dormitory by the crackling fireplace, I will share another story with my friends. Join us, for the magic is about to come alive.
A soft rain fell over Wiltshire that evening, whispering through the ancient trees that surrounded Malfoy Manor. The great house stood silent upon the hill, its tall windows unlit, its gardens overgrown, and its once proud gates now sealed by ministry magic. Since the war had ended, the manor had become a forbidden place, a relic of fear and dark deeds, too recent to forget. Yet tonight, two figures stood before its gates once more. Harry Potter pulled his cloak tighter against the wind. His eyes, still bright beneath the shadow of his hood, traced the familiar crest engraved upon the iron bars. The serpent twined around the letter M. "I can't believe we're doing this," he muttered. Beside him, Draco Malfoy gave a quiet, humorless laugh. "Nor can I. But then, the Ministry never misses a chance to send you where the trouble is, Potter." Harry ignored the jab. The years since Voldemort's fall had turned him into something sterner than the boy he once was. As an Auror, he'd seen enough remnants of dark magic to know that evil rarely died. It only hid. This mission was different, though. Reports had surfaced that strange lights flickered within Malfoy Manor at night. Some swore they'd heard whispers from beneath the ground, whispers in Latin older than any spell taught at Hogwarts. The Ministry feared there was something left behind, a secret chamber. Draco, pale and tense, produced a silver key from within his robes. It shimmered faintly as though resisting his touch. "This was my father's," he said. "It opens every door in the manor, except the one none of us were allowed to find." Harry looked at him uncertain. "And you're sure it's here? This secret chamber?" Draco hesitated before replying. "My mother spoke of it once. Only once. She said Father had a room no one else could enter, sealed by his bloodline. He spent nights down there during the war working on something. She feared it more than she feared the Dark Lord himself." The gates creaked open at Draco's command, the wards recognizing his blood. Together they stepped inside. The manor loomed over them like a slumbering beast. Dust had gathered upon the marble steps. Ivy crawled along the stone walls. Yet the air still held a faint charge, like static after lightning or the breath of a sleeping spell waiting to awaken. Inside, the silence was heavy. Portraits lined the hallways, pale faces of Malfoy's past, their eyes flicking open as Harry passed. None spoke. The one elderly woman's painted lips curled in disdain. They reached the grand drawing room where the chandeliers hung like cobwebs of crystal. A single portrait had been removed from the wall, revealing a dark recess behind it, a mark of the Ministry's earlier search. But the true entrance, Harry knew, would not be found by ordinary means. If Lucius Malfoy wanted to hide something, he'd make sure only blood could find it, he said. Draco nodded faintly, stepping towards the fireplace. Its marble mantle bore the family crest, serpent, rose, and the word Puritas. He drew his wand and whispered, "Aperio sanguine." The hearth flared crimson. The serpent's eyes lit with a dull green glow, and the bricks began to shift, grinding inward until a narrow passage appeared behind the flames, cold, black, and steeply descending. Harry raised his wand, the tip glowing softly. "After you," he said. Draco's jaw tightened. I was afraid you'd say that. The steps led down into the earth. The further they went, the colder it became, until even their breath misted in the air. The walls were carved from ancient stone, etched with runes that pulsed faintly as they passed. It was not merely a passage, it was a boundary sealed by intention. At the bottom, they reached a heavy iron door. Upon it, etched in silver, was a single Latin phrase, Sanguis custodit veritatem. Blood guards the truth. Draco stared at it. I've never seen this before. Harry studied the lock. No keyhole, no mechanism. Maybe it wants more than words. Draco hesitated, then pressed his palm against the door. A faint hum answered. The runes flared red, and then dimmed, as though tasting the bloodline but finding it incomplete. Harry frowned. It's not enough. Draco stepped back. My father must have tied the seal to his blood. Without him... Before he could finish, the door pulsed once more, brighter this time. The floor trembled. A deep voice, hollow and distant, echoed through the chamber. Blood of my blood, flesh of my house. If you seek my truth, you must bear my sin. The iron door creaked open, releasing a gust of cold air that smelled of ancient dust and something far older. Something wrong. Beyond lay a long hall lined with statues. They were not decorative. Each was carved in Lucius Malfoy's likeness, though their faces bore expressions of horror and rage. Harry's voice was low. Merlin's beard. What did he do down here? Draco didn't answer. His hand trembled slightly, his eyes darting over the stone faces that looked too real to be mere art. Then, faintly, one of the statues moved. Its stone lips parted. A whisper crawled out. Draco. Harry spun, wand raised, light flaring. But there was no movement now, only stillness, and the echo of that dreadful voice fading into the cold. The iron door slammed shut behind them, and the torches along the walls burst into green fire. The green fire burned cold and strange, casting flickering shadows that danced like ghosts along the walls. The statues loomed on either side, their eyes hollow, their hands raised as though to shield themselves from some unseen terror. Harry's wand light fought against the eerie glow, yet even that felt swallowed by the chamber's depth. Draco, Harry whispered, stay close. Draco didn't answer. He was staring at one of the statues, its face a perfect likeness of Lucius Malfoy, frozen mid-cry. He reached out, hesitated, and brushed his fingers against the stone. The surface was smooth but warm to the touch. He used to stand just like this, Draco murmured, arms crossed, always watching. Harry's eyes narrowed. You think these are just statues? Draco didn't respond. His gaze wandered further down the hall where more figures lined the way. Some distorted, as if the stone itself had twisted in agony before hardening forever. They began to walk, slowly, every footstep echoing in the stillness. The air was heavy, almost alive with unseen magic. Each rune they passed seemed to shimmer faintly in response to their presence, whispering words neither could quite hear. After what felt like an age, they reached the end of the hall. Another door awaited them. This one smaller, made not of iron but of dark wood veined with silver. It bore no lock, only an engraved serpent curling around a single word. Veritas. Harry exhaled softly. Truth. Father's favorite word, Draco said bitterly. He pressed his hand to the serpent. The door opened soundlessly, revealing a circular chamber beyond, vast, echoing, and utterly silent. At its center stood a marble dais, upon which rested a mirror framed in silver serpents. Its surface shimmered like water, though no reflection moved within. Harry felt a chill. It looks like the mirror of Arist. No, Draco said quietly. It's worse. He stepped closer and the surface rippled. Shadows stirred within, scenes forming and fading like half-remembered dreams. Then without warning, the mirror spoke. Lucius Malfoy, it whispered, voice like wind through broken glass. Your heir comes to claim your sin. Draco froze. The reflection shifted. A figure appeared, tall, proud, and pale. Lucius Malfoy's ghostly image stared out, his gray eyes sharp and cold as ever. Father, Draco breathed. The ghost inclined its head. So you have returned. I wondered when you would gather the courage to face what you fled. Harry stepped forward, wand raised. You're not Lucius. He's dead. The apparition turned toward him with faint disdain. Death means little to one who anchors his soul to truth. I am what remains of Lucius Malfoy's purpose, you, his will, bound to this place by the blood that bore me. The torches flared brighter, and the air trembled as though the chamber itself were listening. Draco swallowed hard. Why did you build this place? To preserve what the Dark Lord would have destroyed, the Shade replied. Knowledge older than any wand, power that answers only to blood. I built the chamber so the Malfoy line might endure, even when names and crowns fell to dust. Harry took a step closer. Power that enslaves and corrupts, you mean? Whatever you've hidden here, it dies tonight. Lucius's reflection smiled faintly. The Savior speaks of purity, yet carries guilt like a shroud. Tell me, Harry Potter, when you dream, do you still hear them? The ones who fell while you lived? Harry stiffened. The words struck like a knife. Draco turned sharply. Leave him out of this. The ghost's gaze softened. Oh, Draco, still defending the unworthy. You've learned nothing. You could reclaim what is rightfully ours, restore the power of your house. All you must do is accept what you are. The mirror's surface shimmered again. Images flashed. Draco as a child standing before his father's study, his mother crying in the doorway, the manor ablaze with wand light and screams. Then another image, Draco kneeling before Voldemort, forced to raise his wand. He stumbled back, pale as parchment. Stop it. But the chamber did not stop. The walls began to pulse with faint light, each rune glowing in time with his heartbeat. The statues in the hall groaned, faintly at first, then louder as if awakening. Harry rushed forward, grabbed Draco's shoulder. It's feeding on you, on your fear. You have to fight it. Draco shook his head. You don't understand. This place knows me. It knows everything my father taught me to hide. Lucius's voice filled the air once more, now coming from everywhere at once. Then prove yourself, my son. Take the serpent's mark upon your hand and command the chamber. Let it recognize its true master. A silver symbol appeared upon the dais, the shape of a coiled serpent glowing faintly. Harry stepped between Draco and the mark. Don't. It's not power he's offering. It's a chain. Draco's eyes were wet, his voice shaking. Maybe it's the only thing that's ever truly been mine. Then make something else yours, Harry said. Something he can't control. The torches flared green again, the room shaking. The mirror screamed, a sound of shattering glass and distant thunder. Lucius's image twisted in rage. Ungrateful child, it roared. I built this house for you, this legacy. You cannot destroy what you are. Draco raised his wand, trembling. You're right, he whispered, but I can choose what I become. He cast the spell before Harry could speak. Finite anima! The mirror cracked from top to bottom. A blinding white light burst forth, hurling both men backward. The statues screamed, and as they crumbled, their stone forms breaking into dust, the serpentine runes flickered and died. When the light faded, the chamber was silent once more. The mirror lay shattered, its surface dull and lifeless. Harry stirred, groaning softly. Draco? Draco sat on the floor, pale and exhausted. He looked up, eyes clearer than they had been in years. "It's over," he said quietly. But before Harry could reply, a faint hum echoed through the ruins of the mirror. One shard remained intact, pulsing faintly with silver light. Upon it, the serpent's eye opened. A whisper softer than breath filled the air. "The blood remembers." And then the shard dimmed, but did not die. The silence that followed was thick and uneasy, as if the very stones of the chamber were holding their breath. Dust drifted in the pale light from Harry's wand, settling over the shattered fragments of the mirror. The runes upon the walls had gone dark, yet a faint vibration lingered beneath their feet. A tremor like a heartbeat far below the earth. Draco was the first to move. He rose unsteadily, brushing the dust from his robes, his eyes fixed on the largest shard of the mirror. It lay upon the dais like a piece of moonlight, the faint serpent eye still gleaming within its depths. "I can feel it," he murmured. "It's not gone. It's waiting." Harry came beside him, breathing hard. His wand light trembled slightly in his grip. "Then we'll make sure it never wakes again." He raised his wand, but Draco caught his wrist. "Wait. If you destroy it without understanding it, it might..." The ground shuddered violently. A low rumble rolled through the chamber, sending bits of stone and dust raining from the ceiling. The torches guttered, their green flames sputtering into darkness, leaving only Harry's wand to hold the night at bay. When the tremor subsided, a deep crack had opened in the dais. Through it, something glowed faintly, not silver this time, but a dull crimson, like the heart of dying embers. Harry crouched beside it, narrowing his eyes. Another seal? Draco knelt opposite, running his hand over the fractured marble. "No, this isn't Father's magic." He paused, frowning. "This feels older, as if it's been here long before the manor itself." A pulse of light flickered from within the crack. Both men recoiled as a gust of hot air rushed upward, carrying with it a faint hiss, almost a whisper. Then a voice, low and venomous, coiled through the chamber. "Blood calls to blood. The serpent stirs." Harry sprang back, wand raised. "What in Merlin's name?" Before he could finish, the shard of mirror upon the dais lifted into the air. It spun slowly, shedding trails of silver fire, and then shattered anew, not into pieces this time, but into mist. The vapor spread through the chamber, twisting, forming shapes. Coils, scales, eyes of living green. Draco stumbled backward. "No, this can't be." The mist gathered, thickened, and from it emerged a spectral serpent. Vast, translucent, yet unmistakably alive. Its head brushed the ceiling, its eyes burning with ancient malice. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere at once. "Heir of Malfoy, child of pride and ruin, you have broken the chain that bound me. I am the legacy your father served." Harry's blood ran cold. "It's not Lucius. It's what he worshipped." The serpent turned its gaze upon him. "And you, the boy who lived, slayer of shadows, you carry the mark of the one who sought to command me." Draco's wand trembled in his hand. "What are you?" The creature's eyes narrowed. "Once I was bound by Salazar himself, his servants, your ancestors. kept my power beneath their house, feeding me with secrets, guarding me with blood. But now the seal is broken. Harry stepped forward, heart pounding. If you think we'll let you escape, the serpent hissed, and a gust of spectral wind hurled him across the chamber. He struck the wall and fell, dazed, his wand clattering to the ground. The serpent's laughter was low and cold. Flesh cannot fight what is older than flesh, it said. But blood can bargain. It turned its gaze back to Draco. Take your place, heir. Speak the word, and I shall grant you dominion over what your father only dreamed to command. Draco's face was pale as bone. His eyes darted to Harry, still struggling to rise. I don't want your power, he said hoarsely. I've seen what it does. The serpent's coils shifted, its vast form circling them both like a living storm. You cannot refuse what is already yours. The blood remembers. It lunged suddenly, its spectral fangs striking the ground where Draco had stood a moment before. The stone hissed and cracked where it touched. Draco dove aside, rolling behind a fallen statue. Harry, regaining his wand, shouted, "Protego!" The shield flared bright blue as the serpent's tail swept through the air, striking against the invisible barrier with a thunderous crash. The impact threw Harry back again, but the shield held. He staggered to his feet, breathing hard. Draco, there's got to be something, some weak point. Draco peeked from behind the broken statue. If it's bound to blood, maybe it can be bound again. Harry nodded grimly. Then we need a seal. His eyes darted to the runes that lined the chamber walls, faint, dying remnants of Lucius's enchantments. If they could be reignited. Draw the circle, Harry shouted. Use your wand, trace the old symbols. Draco hesitated only a moment before obeying. He swept his wand across the stone floor, muttering incantations his father had once forbidden him to speak. The runes began to shimmer again, faint threads of green light connecting one to another, forming a ring of power around the dais. The serpent sensed what they were doing. It roared, lunging toward Draco, but Harry raised his wand high, calling out, "Expecto Patronum." The stag burst from his wand in a blaze of silver light, charging headlong into the serpent's shadowy mass. The two collided, light against darkness, and for a moment the chamber was filled with a blinding radiance. Draco completed the final rune. The circle ignited, green fire rising from its edges. The serpent screamed, a sound like tearing steel and shattering glass. Harry forced his wand towards the creature, shouting over the noise, "Now, Draco, seal it!" Draco's voice rang clear through the chaos. Sanguine ligatura. A chain of crimson light shot from his wand, striking the serpent square in the chest. The creature writhed, its form twisting and unraveling as the chains of blood magic bound it once more to the earth. "Back to the darkness that birthed you," Draco cried. The serpent roared one final time, and then its body shattered into mist, drawn downward into the crack within the dais. The fissure sealed itself shut, leaving only silence, deep and final. For a long while, neither man moved. The air was still, heavy with the echo of what had passed. Then Draco sank to his knees. His face was drawn, his voice faint. "It's done." Harry lowered his wand, panting. "You did it." Draco gave a hollow laugh. "My father would have called it betrayal." Harry looked at him for a long moment. Maybe it's time the Malfoy name meant something else. Draco met his gaze, and for the first time in years, there was no malice in his eyes, only weariness and a flicker of something like hope. But as they turned to leave, Harry paused. The faint glow from beneath the sealed dais pulsed once, slow, steady, like a heartbeat returning to life. Neither man saw it, and far above, in the empty halls of Malfoy Manor, a portrait of Lucius Malfoy smiled in the dark. The morning light crept through the cracked shutters of Malfoy Manor, cold and pale. Dust motes danced in the stillness as Harry and Draco emerged from the depths below, their wands drawn, their clothes torn and streaked with ash. The once grand hallways now seemed hollow, stripped of their pride and filled with the quiet weight of something ended, or so they believed. They stepped over the threshold of the drawing room where faded portraits of ancestors glared down upon them in painted disapproval. The silence was almost kind compared to the roar of the chamber below. Draco's breathing was uneven, his wand hand trembling slightly as if the air itself still carried the serpent's hiss. Harry surveyed the room, his oar's instinct unwilling to rest. "The magic is still alive down there," he said quietly. "You felt it too." Draco's eyes lingered on the floor. "It will take more than one spell to erase centuries of my family's madness." He gave a short, bitter laugh. "The Ministry will want to tear the house apart stone by stone." Harry turned to him. "And what about you?" Draco looked toward the high windows, where light filtered through cobwebbed glass. "I'll let them. Maybe the Malfoy name deserves to be buried along with everything else." But before Harry could answer, a sound interrupted them, a faint scraping like stone shifting far away. They froze. It came again, louder this time, echoing through the empty corridors. Harry raised his wand. "Stay here." Draco caught his arm. "You think I'll let you face it alone after what we've just survived?" There was a touch of defiance in his voice, faint but real. Harry allowed himself a grim nod. "All right then. Together." They moved through the West Hall, following the noise. The portraits on the walls whispered softly as they passed, their painted eyes gleaming in the dim light. The air grew colder with every step. When they reached the far corner of the hall, they saw it, a section of wall that had cracked open, revealing a narrow stairway spiraling upward toward the attic. Harry frowned. That wasn't there before. Draco's expression darkened. "The manor shifts sometimes. Father said the house itself responds to blood magic. Maybe destroying the chamber woke something else." The stairway was steep and narrow, the steps creaking beneath their boots. As they climbed, a strange scent filled the air. Old parchment, iron, and something faintly sweet like decaying flowers. At last they reached a small wooden door at the top. A sliver of light glowed beneath it. Harry motioned for silence and pushed it open. The attic was vast and filled with relics, crates, faded portraits, broken furniture. But at its center stood a small table upon which rested a silver basin, swirling faintly with memory light. A pensive, Draco stared, his voice barely a whisper. "That belonged to my mother. She hid it after the war." Harry approached cautiously. The surface of the pensive shimmered as he drew near, and whispers rose from within it, voices overlapping, urgent and sorrowful. Then a single image formed. Narcissa Malfoy, her face pale but resolute. She looked younger, her eyes bright with purpose. "My son," her voice said softly, "if you are seeing this, then the chamber has awoken. Your father's magic cannot be undone by destruction alone. The serpent beneath our house was not born of his making. It is older than the manor itself. It sleeps within the earth, bound by the blood of our ancestors, and if its hunger is stirred again, It will seek the last of that blood. Draco's breath caught. Mother. The memory flickered, continuing. You must not face it alone. The chamber is a gate, a vessel that connects to the roots of magic itself. Long ago, the founders of Hogwarts each sealed a fragment of their power beneath their chosen grounds. Salazar's gift was the serpent's soul. It was never meant to be tamed. Harry exchanged a look with Draco, realization dawning. That thing wasn't just bound to your family. It was part of Salazar Slytherin's original magic. The image of Narcissa turned her gaze toward the unseen viewer. There is one way to end it, but it requires the blood of two, one born of the line that bound it and one who bears no trace of its magic. Together they may seal the gate where it began. The image wavered. Do not hate your father, Draco. He was only ever a servant of something greater. Remember this, the serpent is not dead, it waits. Then the light faded, leaving the attic in silence once more. Draco stared into the empty basin. His hands were trembling. She knew. All this time she knew. Harry's expression was grim. And she was right. That thing we saw, it was part of something ancient. If the chamber was just a fragment, then the true gate still exists, Draco finished quietly. The floorboards groaned beneath them. A tremor rippled through the attic, knocking over a stack of old portraits. Dust filled the air. From below came a deep, resonant thud, like the beating of a giant heart. Harry turned toward the stairwell. It's waking again. They ran. Down the winding stairs through the shadowed halls, their footsteps echoing like drum beats. The tremor grew stronger, shaking the walls. Portraits fell, chandeliers rattled. The manor itself seemed to moan. By the time they reached the drawing room, the floor had cracked open. Green light poured from the fissures, pulsing in time with the rhythm of the earth. The serpent's voice whispered faintly through the air. The blood remembers. The gate will open. Harry raised his wand, shouting over the noise. Draco, the seal below. Your mother said it needs two. That's what she meant. One from each side of the bloodline. Draco stared at the light, torn between fear and determination. You mean me and you? Harry nodded sharply. You're bound to it, I'm not. Together we can finish what your father started and end it properly this time. The cracks widened. Stone split like parchment. From the center of the floor rose a column of light, twisting into the faint shape of the serpent's spirit once more, its form half-born, half-shadow. Draco stepped forward, his wand raised. Harry joined him, their lights crossing. The air trembled around the magic, sparking like lightning. On my mark, Harry said, bind it with your name. The serpent hissed, its voice shaking the walls. You cannot seal what was born before you. Harry ignored it. Now, Draco. Draco's voice rang out clear and desperate. By the blood of Malfoy, I bind thee. Harry followed, his own spell cutting through the roar. By the will of light, I deny thee. The two spells intertwined, forming a brilliant column of gold and green. The serpent shrieked, its form twisting in agony as the light consumed it. The ground heaved violently, throwing them both to the floor. Then, as suddenly as it began, all fell silent. The cracks sealed. The light faded. The manor stilled. For a long time, there was only the sound of their breathing. Finally, Draco lifted his head. Is it over? Harry nodded slowly, his wand light dimming. For now. Draco rose unsteadily. And if it wakes again? Harry looked toward the sealed floor, his eyes hard. Then we'll be ready. Outside, dawn broke fully over the Wiltshire hills. The clouds parted, and the light touched the stones of Malfoy Manor, no longer proud, but no longer cursed. And deep below, unseen beneath marble and earth, something ancient sighed once more and fell quiet. For 3 days and nights the manor remained still. No flicker of unnatural light, no echo of the serpent's whisper disturbed the silence. The ministry's wards had been re-strengthened, sealing every passage and window. Aurors patrolled the grounds, though few lingered near the western wing. Superstition and unease clung to those halls like damp. Harry stayed longer than he'd intended. He told himself it was duty, the need to verify that the chamber seal held, but deep down he knew it was something else. The memory of the serpent's voice haunted him. Blood calls to blood. He feared it might one day call again. Draco seldom spoke. He moved through the house like a shadow, directing the work of the ministry investigators with a quiet detachment that unsettled even them. The proud heir of Malfoy Manor had become a gaunt figure, pale and silent, with eyes that seemed to see beyond the present. On the morning of the 4th day, a messenger arrived from the ministry bearing orders from Kingsley Shacklebolt himself. The manor was to be permanently decommissioned, its artifacts removed to the Department of Mysteries for study. The building would then be sealed. No spell, no wand, not even a Malfoy would be permitted to enter again. Draco received the parchment in silence, reading it twice before handing it to Harry. "They will destroy it," he said quietly. Harry folded the order and slipped it into his cloak. "They'll keep what's dangerous under watch. It's for the best." Draco's gaze moved towards the grand staircase, where portraits of his ancestors hung in shadow. Perhaps. Yet some things cannot be destroyed by decree. That night, as the workers slept in tents beyond the gates, Harry found Draco standing alone in the drawing room. The fire had burned low, and the faint glow of embers painted his face with restless light. "I've been thinking," Draco said without turning. "If the chamber was tied to Slytherin's power, there may be others, hidden beneath the homes of those descended from his students or allies. The founders scattered their secrets, didn't they? Hogwarts was only one piece." Harry frowned. "You think there are more like it?" Draco turned to face him. "I know there are. My mother's memory said the serpent was a gate. A gate leads somewhere." The words hung between them like a cold draft. Before Harry could reply, the flames in the hearth flickered green. The sound of crackling wood deepened into a low hum, and a shape began to form within the fire, slender, hooded, faceless. Draco's hand went to his wand. "Who's there?" The figure spoke, its voice smooth as silk and cold as winter. "Do not fear. I come by order of the ministry. I am from the Department of Mysteries." Harry's eyes narrowed. "Then show yourself properly." The figure stepped forward, the firelight dimming as it emerged. Beneath the hood was the faint outline of a mask, featureless, silvery, glimmering with runes that shifted like liquid. "Names are of no use where I serve," it said. "You have disturbed something older than you know. The gate you sealed has weakened the boundaries that protect our world. There are signs already. Ripples through the ley lines, disturbances in the wards of ancient sites." Draco stiffened. "You mean it's spreading?" The masked figure inclined its head. "Perhaps, perhaps not yet. But the ministry will not risk it. The relics of your house are to be moved tonight before the moon rises." Harry stepped closer. "You can't move those objects without understanding them. The seal is delicate." The figure's head tilted, considering him. Understanding is our burden, Auror Potter, not yours. Before Harry could protest further, the fire flared again. When it dimmed, the stranger was gone. Only the faint scent of iron remained in the air. Draco stared at the hearth for a long time. "The Department of Mysteries," he said softly. "They're not moving relics. They're looking for the source." Harry nodded grimly. "And if they find it, they'll try to harness it." Draco's eyes hardened. "Then we have to reach it first." He turned toward the west hall, where the sealed stairway to the chamber had once been. But when they reached the place, the stone was gone. The floor had mended itself entirely, as if the entrance had never existed. Harry knelt, running his hand over the smooth marble. "The magic's buried deep. Maybe even we can't break through again." Draco's expression darkened. "Then we go another way." He drew his wand and whispered, "Revelio?" For a moment nothing happened. Then faint lines of light appeared across the walls, mapping hidden corridors and forgotten rooms. One thread led upward past the bedrooms and into the tower above. Draco met Harry's eyes. Mother's tower. She said she kept the family's oldest records there. They climbed swiftly, the manor creaking around them. Dust drifted through the narrow stairwell, and the faint scent of lilies lingered in the air, a memory of Narcissa herself. At the top they reached a circular chamber filled with old furniture and trunks sealed by time. A single portrait hung above the hearth, Narcissa serene and watchful. Draco approached the painting slowly. "Mother," he whispered. The painted eyes blinked and the woman smiled faintly. "You've found your way at last." Harry stepped back in surprise, but Draco only bowed his head. "You left something here, didn't you?" The portrait nodded. A record of the first Malfoy covenant. It was sworn in the days when Salazar still walked the halls of Hogwarts. In return for wealth and protection, our ancestors pledged to guard one of his hidden sanctums, a place called the Hollow of Tongues. Harry's pulse quickened. "Where is it?" The painted Narcissa raised one hand, pointing toward the far wall. "Beyond the tower's north arch. The path reveals itself only by moonlight." They turned toward the narrow archway where a small window overlooked the dark grounds. The moon was rising pale and full. As its light spilled through the window, the wall shimmered and parted, revealing a spiral stair descending into blackness. Harry drew his wand. "You sure about this?" Draco's face was pale but resolute. "If this is what my family was meant to guard, then it ends tonight." They descended once more into a passage that smelled of damp stone and secrets. The air grew colder, and the walls began to gleam with faint scales, stone carved in the likeness of serpents, winding endlessly downward. At last they reached a wide doorway. Upon it was carved a sigil neither had seen before, a serpent devouring its own tail, surrounded by runes that pulsed like a living thing. Draco stepped forward, raising his wand. "The Hollow of Tongues." The door trembled at his words. Then slowly it opened. Beyond lay a vast cavern filled with green light and the sound of whispering voices, hundreds of them overlapping, weaving together like the sibilant chorus of unseen serpents. Harry lifted his wand high, his voice steady. "Whatever this is, we finish it." Draco's gaze met his. Together, they stepped through the threshold, and the door closed silently behind them. The door sealed behind them with a whisper, like the drawing of a blade. At once the air changed, thicker, cooler, vibrating faintly with some ancient current. The light within the cavern was not steady but alive, glimmering as though it flowed through veins beneath the rock. The serpentine carvings on the walls shifted faintly, their eyes seeming to watch as the two intruders stepped into their midst. Draco's wand cast a thin circle of white light that barely touched the vastness ahead. Harry moved beside him, senses sharpened, the taste of metal on his tongue. The floor was smooth stone, polished by centuries, and in places small rivulets of green light ran like water. They walked on in silence, each sound magnified in the hollow stillness. The cavern widened into what might once have been a temple, a circular hall ringed with pillars carved into serpents that coiled upward until their heads met at the ceiling, forming an endless crown of stone fangs. In the center stood a dais of black marble upon which rested a long, narrow chest bound in silver bands. Harry drew a slow breath. "Whatever's in there is what your family was guarding?" Draco nodded, pale in the ghostly light. "Or what we were keeping imprisoned." The whispers grew louder as they approached, a susurrus of half-formed words. Harry could not tell whether they came from the chest or from the very walls. When he reached the dais, he saw that the chest was inscribed with a single phrase in Latin: "Lingua mortua vivit," the dead tongue lives. "Parcel tongue," Harry murmured. Draco stiffened. "Then only you can open it." Harry hesitated. His ability to speak the snake's language had faded after Voldemort's death, yet some part of it lingered, a faint echo in the back of his mind, like the memory of a dream. He looked at Draco. "If this goes wrong..." Draco managed a grim smile. "It always does." "Go on." Harry bent closer, placing his hand upon the silver bands. They were cold, yet pulsing faintly, as if blood ran beneath them. He whispered, his voice rough and unfamiliar. "Open!" The words slithered from his mouth like smoke. The silver bands shivered and uncoiled, falling away with a sound like the hiss of escaping steam. The lid rose slowly, releasing a breath of air that smelled of dust, parchment, and something older. Something serpentine. Inside lay a book. Its cover was made of dark green leather, cracked and scaly to the touch, and upon it was the mark of the serpent devouring its tail. The pages, yellowed with age, whispered faintly even though no wind stirred them. Draco stared at it, awe and dread mingling in his face. "Slytherin's grimoire," he whispered. "I've seen sketches of it in Father's old studies. He said it was lost." Harry looked down at the book. Lost or hidden. He reached out, but as his fingers brushed the cover, the whispers surged into a roar. The pillars shuddered, and the carvings upon them began to move. Stone serpents sliding down the columns, their eyes burning with emerald fire. "Back!" Harry shouted, drawing his wand. Draco raised his as well, casting a shield charm as one of the serpents struck, fangs crashing against invisible glass. The impact sent cracks through the floor. "They're protecting it," Draco cried. Harry gritted his teeth, deflecting another strike. "Then we'll have to be faster than they are." He snatched the book from the chest, tucking it beneath his arm. The serpents reared as one, their voices rising in a deafening chorus. The floor split open, revealing a chasm of green fire beneath. "Run!" They dashed toward the far side of the chamber, the light from the fissure chasing them. Draco hurled spell after spell behind him, shattering pieces of stone that fell among the writhing shapes. The entire cavern seemed alive now, breathing, pulsing with the rhythm of the serpent's heart. At the edge of the hall stood an archway half buried in shadow. Harry leapt through first, Draco a heartbeat behind him. As soon as they crossed the threshold, the arch collapsed in a shower of dust and flame, sealing the passage. They found themselves in a narrow tunnel sloping upward. The walls here were slick with moisture, the light dim and sickly. Harry could feel the book trembling faintly against his side, as though something within it stirred. Draco slowed, pressing a hand to his chest. "We can't take it to the surface," he said between breaths. "If it's Slytherin's own work..." Harry turned to him, his face drawn. "We can't leave it here either. You saw what it was doing." Draco looked past him into the darkness they had left behind. "If the Department of Mysteries finds it, they'll use it. You know they will." Harry's jaw tightened. "Then we find out what's inside before they do." The tunnel wound upward for what felt like hours. The air grew warmer, and at last they emerged into the ruin of an old cellar, a forgotten part of the manor that opened into the forest beyond. Night had fallen. The moon hung low, silvering the trees. For a moment, the stillness of the outside world seemed unreal after the chaos below. Harry set the book upon a fallen log, its surface gleaming in the moonlight. If there's anything left of Salazar's voice in this, it could tell us what the creature really was. Draco eyed it warily. Or it could wake it again. Harry looked up. "Do you trust me?" After a long pause, Draco nodded once. "I suppose I must." Harry opened the book. The pages were filled with strange, writhing script, letters that seemed to move like living things. He frowned, trying to focus, and the symbols began to shift into words he could read. "To those who speak the tongue of serpents, I grant the path to the hollow where words are power and silence is death. Beyond the gates of stone lies the first language, the song that shaped the world. Guard it, or it shall unmake you." Harry exhaled slowly. "It's not just a spell book. It's a map." Draco leaned closer. "A map to what?" Before Harry could answer, the words upon the page began to rearrange themselves, forming a single line of text that burned with green fire. "The tongue that lives will rise again." The flames leapt from the page, swirling around them. Harry slammed the book shut, but the fire didn't vanish. It spun upward, forming a column that pierced the night sky. The forest around them shuddered as every serpent for miles, real or carved, living or spectral, lifted its head and hissed as one. Then as suddenly as it had begun, the light vanished. Draco staggered back, pale. "What did you do?" Harry looked down at the book. It was cold now, the mark upon its cover dark and still. Yet somewhere in the distance, far beyond the forest, a deep rumble echoed, like thunder from beneath the earth. He met Draco's gaze. "I think we just told it. We're still here." And as the wind stirred through the trees, faint whispers followed, carrying words neither man could quite make out, words that sounded very much like a language no living man should know. The night deepened around them, heavy and watchful. The forest beyond Malfoy Manor was an old one, filled with twisted trees whose roots coiled like sleeping serpents. The air was thick with mist that crept low across the ground, veiling the earth in silver. Every sound, the crack of a twig, the whisper of leaves, seemed to echo louder than it should, as though something vast and unseen listened in the dark. Harry and Draco stood beside the fallen log where the ancient book lay. Neither spoke. The last echo of that green flame still pulsed behind Harry's eyes, and the words burned into his thoughts. "The tongue that lives will rise again." Draco broke the silence first. "You felt it, didn't you? That wasn't just light. Something hurt us." Harry nodded grimly. Something ancient, and now it knows we found its words. He knelt beside the book again, studying its scaly cover. The mark of the serpent glimmered faintly, as though light still smoldered beneath the leather. If this is truly a map, he said, then it must lead somewhere beyond the hollow. Maybe to the place where Slytherin bound the first serpent, the source of all this. Draco gave a quiet laugh without mirth. You speak as if this were a quest from one of those old wizarding tales. Two fools chasing a curse no one else wants. Harry straightened, his expression unreadable. Would you rather leave it for the Department of Mysteries to find? Draco's jaw tightened. No. But I'm beginning to think we were never meant to unearth this. My family guarded these secrets for centuries, and look what it's done to us. Harry turned toward the manor's distant silhouette, its spires just visible above the trees. Maybe it's time someone ended it properly. Draco was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. So where do we begin? Harry opened the book once more, though it resisted his touch. The pages rippled like the surface of water, revealing new lines of text, written in a strange, fluid hand. As he read, the words shifted, rearranging themselves until they formed a simple phrase. Follow the tongue that cannot die. Draco frowned. That's no direction. It's a riddle. Harry closed the book and rose. A riddle written by Slytherin. That means it's not about a place. It's about a language, the serpent's speech itself. He looked toward Draco. There's only one place left where Parseltongue was ever recorded in its purest form. Draco understood at once. The Chamber of Secrets. Harry nodded. Hogwarts? The word hung between them, heavy with memories neither man wished to revisit, but both knew there was no other path. By dawn, they had reached the edge of the forest. The manor loomed behind them, shrouded in mist, its windows dark as tombs. A pair of Ministry Patrol wizards stood by the gates, yawning in the gray light. Harry showed his R's seal and said only that their work was done. The guards let them pass without question. They apparated to Hogsmeade, landing upon the cobbled road that wound toward the castle. The village was quiet in the early hour. Smoke rose from a few chimneys, and the scent of baking bread drifted faintly through the cold air. The sight of it stirred something in Harry, nostalgia and dread intertwined. Draco looked up at the distant towers of Hogwarts, gleaming gold in the morning sun. It's strange, he murmured. After all that's happened, it still looks untouched. Untouchable. Harry's voice was soft. That's what we all thought once. They made their way to the castle gates, where the old caretaker Filch met them with his lantern in hand and his scowl unchanged by age. Visitors? He grumbled. You'd best have permission. Headmistress won't like strangers sneaking about. Harry smiled faintly. She'll make an exception for me, I think. Filch blinked, squinting at him. Potter? Merlin's beard? I thought you'd finally learned to stay out of trouble. Apparently not, Harry said dryly. We just need access to the lower chambers. Official business. Filch muttered darkly, but waved them through, muttering something about bloody heroes and their cursed basements. The castle was quieter than Harry remembered. The echoes of their footsteps followed them through the halls as they made their way to the entrance of the chamber, hidden still beneath the girl's lavatory, where Moaning Myrtle's ghost had once wailed. The ghost appeared as they entered, her translucent form floating above a cracked sink. Harry Potter, she said dreamily. "I wondered when you'd come back. Did you miss me?" Harry managed a small smile. "Always, Myrtle. We need to get into the chamber again." Her eyes widened. "Oh, not that dreadful place. Why would anyone want to go down there?" "It's important," Harry said. "Can you keep watch while we're gone?" Myrtle pouted but nodded, drifting aside as Harry hissed the ancient word that opened the sink. The pipes twisted, shifting into a wide stone passage. Cold air rushed upward. Draco stared down the dark hole. "You're certain this leads to what we need?" Harry gripped the edge of the sink. "No, but it's where this all began." He jumped first, sliding into the blackness. Draco followed. They landed hard in the familiar tunnel, the scent of damp stone and decay filling the air. Harry's wand flared, revealing the skeletal remains of the basilisk, still coiled along the walls. The body had decayed to bones long ago, but even in death it exuded an aura of dread. Draco's voice was quiet. "So this was the monster your second year?" Harry nodded. "Tom Riddle's doing. But I think it was only ever a fragment of what Slytherin left behind." They pressed onward into the vast central chamber, where towering statues of serpents watched over the lake of dark water. At the far end stood the enormous stone face of Salazar Slytherin, its mouth now sealed. Harry approached the statue and opened the ancient book once more. The pages fluttered of their own accord until they stopped at a single symbol, a serpent swallowing the moon. He hissed softly, repeating the pattern aloud in Parseltongue. The sound echoed through the hall, low and sibilant. The statue's eyes flared green. Slowly the stone lips parted, revealing a spiral stair descending deeper still, far below even the known chamber. Draco stared, awed. Another level. Merlin's ghost. It goes even deeper. Harry tightened his grip on his wand. The book called it the Hollow, where words are power. I think we've just found it. They began their descent. The steps were narrow, slick with moisture. As they went down, the sound of whispering grew again, soft at first, then clearer, as though countless tongues were murmuring just beyond the edge of hearing. When they reached the bottom, they found themselves in a vast cavern lit by veins of pale green crystal. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, letters that seemed to breathe. Draco whispered, "It's alive." Harry stepped forward, the book trembling in his hand. The whispers coalesced into a single voice, deep and resonant, neither male nor female. "The tongue has returned. The blood of the serpent and the blood of the light stand together once more." The cavern pulsed with light. The ground beneath them shuddered, and from the far shadows, something began to move. The sound came first, a deep, rhythmic thrum, like the beating of some vast heart buried beneath the earth. The ground quivered beneath their boots. Shards of crystal trembled and sang with a high metallic note, and the whispering voices that filled the cavern swelled to a fevered chant. Draco raised his wand instinctively. "Something's waking," he said, his voice tight. Harry said nothing. His gaze had fixed upon the far wall, where the light of the crystals bled into a darkness so thick it seemed alive. Within that shadow, something stirred, a shape vast and coiling, glimmering faintly in the dim glow. Then came the hiss. It was not the hiss of air through stone, but of a living creature, ancient and hungry. The black shape slid forward, revealing eyes the color of molten emeralds. They burned like lanterns, lighting the vast ribs and coils of an immense serpent, its scales black as midnight and slick as glass. The serpent's voice filled the chamber, echoing through the bones of the earth. "At last," it said, "the tongue returns. to speak my name. Harry's heart pounded in his chest. "Who are you?" he called. The creature lifted its head, scales rippling like liquid shadow. "I am what was left. When Salazar's heart turned to stone, I am the tongue that cannot die." Draco's eyes widened. "The Hollow's guardian." "The Hollow's soul," the serpent corrected. "For ages, the line of my keepers has dwindled, their voices silenced one by one. Yet your blood remains, little heir of Malfoy, and you bring the one who speaks with stolen words." Harry stepped forward, wand raised. "We're not here to serve you. We came to end this." The serpent's laughter rolled through the cavern like thunder. "End? There's no end to speech, boy. Every word spoken carries a fragment of me. Every lie, every truth, each sound that shapes the world is part of my flesh." Draco's wand trembled in his hand. "You mean the language itself is alive?" "Alive," the creature hissed, "and waiting to be born anew." Harry's mind raced. "You fed on those who used Parseltongue. That's how you survived. Every Malfoy who spoke the tongue kept you alive." The serpent coiled closer, its head lowering until its eyes were level with his. "And now, you offer me what I have sought for centuries. The voice of the light, the blood of the dark. Together you can break my chains." Draco took a step back. "No, we came to bind you again." The serpent's gaze turned upon him, cold and knowing. "You carry the guilt of generations, child. You cannot bind what your family swore to protect. You can only fulfill the vow." Harry grabbed Draco's arm. "Don't listen to it. It's trying to..." But the serpent's voice was already winding around Draco's thoughts, silky and persuasive. "Do you not wish to be free of their shame? Take my gift. Speak my true name, and I shall burn the mark of your house from the world." Draco froze, torn. The emerald light glinted in his eyes. Harry stepped between them. "You want him to set you free because you can't do it yourself. You need his blood and mine." The serpent's laughter deepened. "All magic needs a tongue, and every spell a voice. Even your light would be silent without me." Its great coils tightened, drawing closer. The cavern shook. Dust fell like snow from the ceiling. The book in Harry's hand pulsed with heat, its pages fluttering open on their own. Symbols burned across the parchment, rearranging into a single word that shimmered with green fire. Draco's eyes snapped to it. "It's giving us its name." Harry hissed before he could stop himself, the syllables sliding from his mouth unbidden. "Sathrael." The serpent reared, its laughter shaking the stone. "You speak it! You summon me by name!" The crystals flared, flooding the chamber with green light. The walls began to dissolve, melting into air. For a heartbeat, Harry thought the whole cavern was collapsing, but then he realized it wasn't stone that moved, it was space itself. The ground shifted beneath them. The air grew thin, electric. They stood now upon a bridge of light suspended over a void without end. All around, fragments of memory drifted like shattered mirrors. Visions of Hogwarts, of ancient forests, of faces long dead. Draco swayed, pale. "We're not in the chamber anymore." Harry steadied him. "This is the Hollow, the true one. We've crossed into the serpent's memory." From the shadows at the far edge of the bridge, the serpent rose again, vast and luminous, its scales glowing with every color of green and silver. Around it swirled symbols of ancient magic, letters that shifted like smoke. "You have opened the path," it said. "Now the first tongue shall be spoken again. The world will remember what it forgot." Harry lifted his wand. "Not if we seal it here." He opened the book once more. The symbols upon its pages blazed, forming a circle of light around them both. The serpent recoiled, hissing in fury. Draco shouted over the noise, "How do we bind it?" "The same way it was bound before," Harry said. "Blood and will." He sliced his palm with his wand and pressed his hand to the page. The book drank his blood, glowing scarlet for a moment before dimming to white. "Your turn," he said. Draco hesitated, then did the same. Their blood mingled upon the page, red and silver intertwining. The circle flared, casting spears of light that pierced the darkness. The serpent screamed. Its vast coils twisted in pain. "You cannot silence the tongue. It lives in you, in all who speak." Harry's voice rang out firm and clear. "Then we'll bury it deeper than memory." He thrust his wand forward, shouting, "Claudere verbum!" Draco echoed him, "Sanguine sigillum!" The two spells collided in the air, merging into a single blaze of power. The bridge beneath them shook, light splintering outward in waves. The serpent lunged, jaws wide, but the light consumed it, burning through its form until only shards of green flame remained. When the glow faded, the serpent was gone, the bridge was gone, the void was gone. Harry found himself kneeling on stone once more, breathless and drenched in sweat. The book lay before him, closed and dark. Beside him, Draco stirred, groaning softly. They were back in the chamber. The crystals were dim, their light fading to ash. Draco sat up slowly, his hand trembling. Did it work? Harry looked at the book. A faint crack ran through its cover, as though the leather had turned to stone. "I think so." He rose, holding out a hand to Draco. "Let's get out of here." As they began their climb back toward the surface, neither noticed the faint whisper that escaped the book, soft, sibilant, and filled with patient amusement. "All tongues return to silence, and silence is mine." Then the sound was gone, swallowed by the dark. By the time Harry and Draco emerged from the chamber, dawn had already broken over the castle. The first light of morning crept through the windows of the abandoned bathroom, turning the cracked tiles to dull gold. Myrtle was nowhere to be seen. Perhaps even she had fled from the lingering echoes of what had taken place far beneath. The two men stood in silence, breathing the cool, still air. Draco's face was pale, his robes torn and streaked with dust. The faint scent of stone and serpents clung to them both. Harry leaned heavily against the wall. His magic felt drained, as if the act of sealing the serpent had stolen something from him. A part of his voice, perhaps, or something older. He flexed his fingers, but the faint tremor there would not cease. Draco's gaze lingered on the old sink that had hidden the entrance. "Do you think it's over this time?" he asked. Harry exhaled slowly. "It's contained. That's all we can hope for." "Contained?" Draco repeated softly. "Like everything else in my family." For a moment, neither spoke. The sound of dripping water filled the silence. Then Harry said, "You did what none of your ancestors could. You stopped it." Draco gave a hollow laugh. "Perhaps, but I can't help wondering if we only locked it away inside ourselves." Harry looked at him sharply. "What do you mean?" Draco rubbed his hand over his face, weary. "When the light consumed the serpent, when it died, I felt something enter me, just a moment, a flicker. A voice, perhaps, then silence, but I still feel it there, at the edge of hearing." Harry frowned. "You're sure?" Draco met his gaze. "I'm not sure of anything anymore." They left the bathroom, descending through the quiet corridors of Hogwarts. The castle was waking now, Voices of students echoed faintly from the distant halls. Yet as they walked, Harry felt an unease stirring beneath the calm. The stones themselves seemed to hum faintly, as though remembering what had been spoken below. When they reached the great hall, the morning feast was beginning. Teachers and students alike looked up in surprise as the two men entered, disheveled and pale. At the head of the table, Professor McGonagall rose at once. "Mr. Potter," she said sharply. "Mr. Malfoy, what have you done this time?" Harry bowed his head slightly. "Headmistress, we needed access to the lower chambers. We believe we've ended a lingering threat, something tied to Salazar Slytherin himself." McGonagall's expression softened, though her eyes were wary. "The Ministry reported disturbances near Wiltshire last week. You mean to tell me it was connected to Hogwarts?" Draco nodded. "Part of it was, but it's been dealt with." A murmur spread through the hall. The students whispered behind their hands, eyes darting between the two men. Some recognized Draco and whispered his name with unease. McGonagall studied them both. "Very well. You will report to the Ministry for a full account before nightfall. Until then, you may rest. The castle will hold your secrets for now." As they turned to leave, Harry caught sight of the Slytherin table. The students there stared at Draco in wary fascination, some with fear, others with curiosity. He felt a pang of pity for them. The burden of legacy never truly left. Outside, the morning mist was lifting from the lake. The air was crisp, and the water mirrored the pale sky. They walked in silence along the shore, following the path toward the forbidden forest. Draco spoke first. "When you sealed it, what did you feel?" Harry thought for a long moment. Cold. Then quiet, like something that had been waiting finally gave up. He looked out over the water, but quiet isn't always peace. Draco's mouth twitched faintly. "You sound like Dumbledore. Maybe I finally understand what he meant." They stopped near the edge of the forest, where the shadows of the trees stretched long across the grass. Harry opened the ancient book once more. Its pages were dark and brittle, but the mark of the serpent was gone. Where it had been, a single rune now glimmered faintly in silver, like a heartbeat. Draco watched it warily. "You said it was dead." Harry nodded. "And maybe it is. But magic doesn't die. It changes shape." He closed the book carefully. "We'll take it to the Ministry. The unspeakables can lock it away." Draco gave a short, bitter laugh. "You trust them?" Harry met his gaze. "No, but we can't keep it either." Before Draco could reply, the air shifted. A sudden wind swept across the lake, cold and sharp. The trees groaned, their branches bending toward the castle. Then, faintly, from the direction of the forbidden forest came a hiss, a whisper too low to be human yet unmistakably alive. Harry turned sharply. "Did you hear that?" Draco's face had gone pale. "It's the same sound, the serpent's voice." The hiss came again, nearer now, rippling through the grass like the slither of unseen scales. The water of the lake stirred, forming concentric rings that spread outward. Beneath the surface, something moved, something vast. Harry drew his wand, his pulse quickening. "Stay back." But before either could act, the lake erupted. A column of water burst upward, and within it a shape rose, shimmering, spectral, not flesh, but memory. It was the serpent's face, vast and translucent, eyes burning with ghostly light. Draco stumbled back. "That's impossible. We destroyed it." The apparition's voice rolled across the grounds like thunder. You sealed the tongue, but not the echo. Words once spoken never die. They wait. Harry raised his wand. "Begone!" he shouted, casting a wave of light that struck the apparition. The image wavered, dimmed, but did not vanish. It laughed, the sound hollow and terrible. The hollow is never empty. It has only changed its form. Then with a rush of wind, the vision shattered into mist. The lake stilled. The forest grew silent once more. For a long while, neither man moved. At last, Draco whispered, "What does it mean?" Harry's voice was low. "It means what Dumbledore always said. Words have power. We silenced the serpent's voice, but not its language." Draco stared at the lake where the ripples still glimmered faintly in the morning light. "Then it's still out there. The hollow isn't gone. It's in us." Harry closed his eyes briefly. "Perhaps, but we can choose what we do with it." He tucked the book beneath his arm and turned back toward the castle. "Come on. Let's make sure no one else ever finds their way down there again." As they walked away, the wind stirred the reeds along the shore. For a fleeting moment, the rustle of the leaves formed a pattern, soft, hissing syllables that only the oldest magic could understand. And though neither man looked back, the air around the lake seemed to whisper with a single, lingering word, one that carried through the mist and faded into the dawn. Sathrael. The following days passed in a haze of sleepless nights and unanswered questions. The ministry interrogated them both for hours, question after question about the serpent, the hollow, the book. Every unspeakable and horror with clearance higher than gold level gathered to examine the dark relic that Harry and Draco had brought from beneath Hogwarts. Yet the book refused to speak again. Its pages, once alive with writhing words, had turned blank. Not even the most delicate detection spells could stir a flicker of magic from it. It simply lay there in its glass case, inert and silent, as if mocking their attempts to uncover its secrets. Harry was relieved, though he did not show it. He wanted it buried in the deepest vault, far from mortal reach. But the Department of Mysteries was never content with silence. He could see it in their eyes, their fascination, their hunger. Draco noticed it too. He lingered beside the case one evening as the unspeakables filed out, their footsteps fading into the distance. "They'll never stop prodding it," he murmured. "Curiosity is a kind of curse. They'll keep searching for what they shouldn't find." Harry gave a grim smile. "That's what we're here to stop." Draco's reflection looked back at him through the glass, paler now, drawn, but steadier than it had been in years. "I've lived long enough among liars to know when someone hungers for power," he said quietly, "and they're no different. They think they're immune to it, but they're not." Harry turned away. No one is. Outside, London's sky was bruised purple with evening. The wind off the Thames rattled against the old stone walls of the ministry's upper levels. For a moment, Harry allowed himself to hope that the matter would fade like a nightmare upon waking. But hope rarely lasted long where magic of that age was concerned. The first sign came a week later. Reports began to surface of strange phenomena. Hissing voices heard through fireplaces, quills writing by themselves in unknown runes, students at Hogwarts waking from dreams of serpents coiled around the castle towers. One boy had been found sleepwalking to the entrance of the chamber, whispering in a language no one understood. Harry read the reports in grim silence. Across from him in the Auror office, Ron frowned as he scanned the parchment. "You think it's connected?" Harry nodded. It's spreading. The echo the serpent spoke of, it's still alive. Ron glanced up, concern shadowing his freckled face. And Draco? He's the key. If anyone can still feel it, it's him. They found Draco the next night in Wiltshire, standing before the ruins of Malfoy Manor. The Ministry had demolished most of the estate, leaving only fragments of marble columns jutting from the earth like broken teeth. The moonlight painted him silver. Harry approached quietly. You've heard it, haven't you? Draco didn't look away from the ruins. Every night. At first just whispers, then dreams. The same one again and again. What happens in them? Draco's jaw tightened. I stand in the hollow, but it isn't beneath the earth anymore. It's everywhere. Woven through the air, the trees, the rain. The language itself is alive, and it's calling for a speaker. Harry's pulse quickened. It's searching for a vessel. Draco's eyes flicked toward him, pale and sharp. Perhaps it already found one. Before Harry could answer, the wind rose suddenly, carrying with it a faint, sibilant sound. The grass bent as though pressed by invisible movement. Then came the voice, faint but clear, curling around them both. Two voices made one. The seal is blood. The blood remembers. Draco flinched, clutching his head. It's inside, he gasped. Inside me. Harry seized his shoulders. Fight it. Don't let it take hold. Draco's eyes glowed faintly green. The veins in his neck darkened as if ink were spreading beneath his skin. For a heartbeat, his voice changed, layered, inhuman. You sealed me with your blood, Potter. You cannot silence what shares your flesh. Harry stepped back, wand raised. Get out of him, he shouted. A surge of white light burst from his wand, striking Draco square in the chest. The spell threw him backward into the dust. When the light faded, Draco lay still, breathing shallowly. The green glow was gone from his eyes, replaced by exhaustion and fear. Harry knelt beside him. You all right? Draco coughed weakly. It's trying to speak through me. Every time I dream, I wake with words I don't remember saying. Harry helped him sit up. Then we have to find the source before it takes full form. Draco managed a faint, bitter smile. And here I thought my life would grow quieter after the war. Together they left the ruins and apparated back to London, to the one place that might still hold answers, the Department of Mysteries. The corridors beneath the Ministry were darker than ever. The torches flickered weakly, throwing long, trembling shadows along the walls. At the heart of the department lay the Hall of Whispers, where countless voices murmured behind locked doors, echoes of magic too dangerous to be studied. The air was thick, humming faintly with unseen power. And there, upon its pedestal, stood the glass case containing the ancient book. Only it was no longer blank. The pages were filled again. Lines of script written in glowing green ink that moved and twisted like living serpents. The runes burned against the glass, and with every flicker, the whispering around them grew louder. Draco stepped forward, entranced. It's awake again. Harry pulled him back. Don't touch it. The glass cracked under an invisible pressure. With a sharp crack, it shattered. The book rose into the air, its pages turning of their own accord. The runes flew from the parchment, swirling into a storm of green light. The whispers became a chorus. Blood and word, seal and will, the tongue reborn. The wind lashed through the chamber, scattering parchment and light. Harry raised his wand, shouting a shield spell, but the force struck like a hurricane, throwing both men to the ground. Then silence. The book lay closed once more, resting amid shards of broken glass. Its cover was unmarked, its magic gone again. Draco groaned, rising unsteadily. Did we stop it? Harry's eyes fixed on the floor, where the book had rested. Etched into the stone, glowing faintly, was a single word: Sathrael. He felt it pulse once like a heartbeat. Then the whisper came again, soft, almost gentle, curling through the air around them both. You cannot unmake the first word. The torches went out. In the darkness, Harry's wand flared with light. Draco stood beside him, pale and silent. The echo of the serpent's language lingered in the air like smoke. Neither man spoke for a long time. Then Harry said quietly, "It's not over." Draco nodded. "It never is." The light of Harry's wand flickered across the empty hall, catching the glint of the ruined case, the still pages of the ancient book, and the faint trace of a rune that shimmered like the mark of something watching, something waiting. Outside, thunder rolled across the London sky, and far below, in the depths of the ministry, the hollow whispered once more. The storm that night was relentless. Rain fell in silver sheets against the ministry's stone walls, and thunder rolled like the growl of an ancient beast beneath the earth. London slept uneasily, as though the storm itself were a warning from something older than the sky. Harry stood alone in his office, staring at the shattered glass of the display case they had sealed only days before. Every trace of the serpent's book had been removed, locked now in the deepest vaults, far below the Department of Mysteries. Yet the memory of it lingered, humming faintly through the wards, a presence felt rather than seen. He had not slept since that night. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw it again, the emerald light curling like smoke, the runes burning across the stone, and that single word that would not leave his mind, Sathrael. He whispered it once under his breath, testing the sound, and the lamp on his desk flickered. He froze, heart hammering. Then with deliberate calm, he banished the thought and doused the light entirely. Sleep was safer in darkness, but sleep would not come. When morning broke, he found Draco waiting at the entrance to the atrium, pale beneath his hood, rain dripping from his cloak. His expression was drawn, but determined. "It's spreading faster," Draco said without preamble. "There were reports from France last night. An entire convent heard voices through the stone walls, chanted in Parseltongue, wizards and muggles alike." Harry's stomach turned. "The echo's gone beyond Britain." Draco nodded grimly. "Whatever we bound in the hollow, it's not bound to one place anymore. It's bound to language itself. It's inside the words we speak." Harry rubbed his temples. "So even silence won't stop it." Draco looked away, rain tracing silver lines down his face. "Nothing stops a voice once it's remembered." They went below again, through the twisting corridors of the ministry's lower levels, where only horrors and unspeakables tread. The air was damp, humming faintly. It always smelled faintly of ink, stone, and secrets. Their destination lay at the end of a corridor, sealed by 100 enchantments, the Vault of Relics. It was here the serpent's grimoire had been entombed, wrapped in protective charms and wards, older than any of them. 2 guards waited outside, their faces drawn and sleepless. "Sir," one said, "it's been active again. The wards keep flaring. Every time we reinforce them, something pushes back." Harry exchanged a glance with Draco. "Open it!" The guards hesitated. "Sir, the order—" "I'll take responsibility." Harry said, voice quiet but final. The iron door groaned open. Inside the vault, the air was heavy and electric, thick enough to taste. The book lay on its pedestal, untouched, but its pages fluttered as though stirred by an unseen wind. The runes glowed faintly through the cover like embers under ash. Draco whispered, "It's breathing." Before Harry could answer, a voice rippled through the chamber, not loud but intimate, as though whispered directly into their ears. "You carry me in your mouths." The torches dimmed. The wards shimmered and failed one by one, bursting like glass under pressure. The air quivered with the pulse of invisible speech. Draco stepped back, wand drawn. "It's feeding again." Harry raised his wand too, casting a containment barrier. The light flared bright gold, surrounding the pedestal in a shimmering cage. "We can't destroy it," he shouted over the noise, "but maybe we can separate it, cut it off from the echoes." Draco shouted a counter-charm, the two spells weaving together, their lights spiraling around the relic. The floor cracked beneath them, green fire bleeding through the stone. The voice rose again, louder now, carrying across the vault. "You sealed the hollow, but the hollow is within you." The sound became unbearable, a storm of words, 1,000 languages speaking as one. The wards failed entirely. The book lifted into the air, spinning faster and faster, pages tearing free like wings of light. Harry felt his strength falter. His knees struck the stone. "Draco, stop!" Draco stood motionless within the storm, his eyes glowing faintly green. The voice that spoke now came from his lips. "I am the first word and the last breath. You cannot cage what is born in every tongue." Harry's heart clenched. "Draco, fight it!" But Draco only smiled faintly, as if listening to something far away. "It says I am its vessel, that I was always meant to be." Harry forced himself upright, staggering toward him. "That's not you. It's trying to break free. Don't give it what it wants." Draco's body trembled. His voice cracked. "Then stop me before it's too late." Without another thought, Harry lunged forward, seizing Draco's wrist and pressing his wand against their joined hands. The magic flared white and violent. The world went silent. A light brighter than any spell burst through the vault. And for a moment, Harry saw everything. The serpent's hollow, the chamber beneath Hogwarts, the ancient vaults of the Ministry, and the vast web of words that stretched across the world, binding every living being. At the center of it all pulsed a single heart of green fire, the soul of the serpent waiting to be reborn. He felt Draco's will beside his, straining, holding. Together they forced the power back, sealing it once more within the book. When the light faded, they lay upon the cold floor, gasping. The vault was dark again. The relic was gone. Only a faint trace of smoke hung in the air, smelling of ash and old parchment. Harry sat up, every muscle aching. "Draco?" Draco stirred, his hair plastered to his forehead. His eyes, when he opened them, were clear, no longer green. "It's gone," he whispered. Harry looked around. "Where?" Draco met his gaze. "Everywhere." A terrible calm settled over the room. The pedestal where the book had rested was empty, yet the faint imprint of the serpent's sigil glowed on the stone, breathing, pulsing faintly with life. Outside, thunder shook the earth again. From far above came the faintest murmur of voices. The Ministry's scribes at work, their quills scratching across parchment. The sound was steady, rhythmic, until Harry realized the words they wrote were not their own. Each quill moved in perfect unison, tracing the same sentence again and again. The tongue that lives will rise again. Draco's face went white. It's speaking through them. Harry stood slowly, gripping his wand. Then it's no longer bound to one book or one man. It's in the words themselves. Draco whispered almost reverently, "Sathriel isn't a being anymore. It's a language set free." The quills above kept scratching faster now, as if caught in a frenzy. Pages tore themselves loose, filling the air like wings. The whisper of ink became the hiss of serpents. Harry's voice was grim. "Then we'll have to fight it in every tongue it knows." He turned to Draco, their eyes meeting in shared resolve. "Let's end this properly, before the world forgets how to be silent." And together they ascended from the vault, the echoes of the hollow following them like the breath of a storm yet to break. Rain lashed the ministry spires as the storm returned, heavier than before. The sky itself seemed to twist with unseen tension, clouds flashing green at their cores, as if the heavens were whispering in the serpent's tongue. London's lights flickered below, spells crackling and failing across the city. The magical wards trembled. Even muggles felt it in their bones, an unspoken dread, as if the world had forgotten how to rest. Harry and Draco stood upon the upper terrace of the ministry, cloaks whipping in the wind, gazing down at the streets far beneath them. They had seen enough to know Sathriel's voice was spreading. Every magical quill in the world wrote the same cursed phrase. Spells twisted when spoken. Words themselves had begun to change, letters shifting mid-sentence, meanings collapsing and reforming. Draco's voice was tight. "It's using our language as a vessel. Every word we speak feeds it." Harry nodded grimly. "Then silence won't save us. We need to change the language itself, unmake its rhythm before it finishes binding the world." Draco turned toward him, disbelief flickering across his pale face. "You mean rewriting magic? Do you even understand what that means?" Harry met his gaze. "It means doing what Slytherin couldn't, ending the first tongue forever." He held up the shard he had taken from the serpent's book, the only fragment that had survived their last confrontation. The rune upon it glowed faintly, pulsing in time with the storm. "This," Harry said, "is the key, the rune for the serpent's name. Every echo of Sathriel is tied to this shape. If we destroy the rune itself, we destroy the foundation of its language." Draco hesitated. "And if it's bound to us? You said it. Our blood sealed it. Breaking the rune might break us with it." Harry's voice softened. "And so be it. We started this together." For a moment the storm seemed to pause. The rain hung in the air like glass. Then Draco gave a faint, humorless smile. "You always did have a hero complex, and you always had a talent for doing what no one else dared." They turned from the terrace and descended once more into the heart of the ministry, down past the Auror offices, the records halls, and the guarded stair to the Department of Mysteries. But the deeper they went, the more wrong the air felt, thicker, electric, filled with the echo of unseen whispers. The corridors themselves were changing. Words were appearing on the walls, scrawled in living ink. Phrases in every language of the wizarding world, crawling like vines. The torches flared green, then dimmed. "It's already here," Draco muttered. Harry's grip tightened on the shard. "Then this is where we make our stand." They reached the Hall of Whispers, though it was hardly recognizable. The once quiet chamber had become a cathedral of sound. Thousands of unseen voices whispered in unison, a choir of languages blending into a single dreadful rhythm. The rune they sought had carved itself into the air above the floor. Vast, pulsing, alive, Draco swallowed hard. It's drawing power from every word ever spoken. Harry stepped forward, his wand flaring bright gold. Then let's give it something it can't consume. He raised the shard. Its light met the rune's glow, and the two resonated, opposite tones clashing in a storm of sound. The voices screamed. A shockwave burst outward, hurling both men to the floor. The rune writhed, twisting like a living serpent. Words peeled themselves from the air, burning symbols that fell like ash. Draco crawled toward Harry, shouting over the chaos. "We can't fight it with magic. It is magic. We need something older, something beyond spell work." Harry's mind raced. Older than magic. Older than words. A thought came to him. A memory of Dumbledore's voice, gentle but firm. The oldest magic, Harry, is not cast by wand or word, but by will. He looked at Draco. Not with spells, with intention. He pressed his bleeding palm to the rune's light, forcing his mind to focus, not on destruction, but on silence. A world where words held no power, where thought could exist without sound. The magic fought him, clawing at his mind, filling his head with hissing voices. Then Draco joined him, pressing his hand beside Harry's. His voice shook. "If we're going to end it, Potter, do it properly." Their combined will struck the rune like a hammer. The air tore open. For a heartbeat, time folded, past and present, overlapping. They saw flashes, Salazar Slytherin carving the first runes in the foundations of Hogwarts, Lucius Malfoy kneeling in shadowed chambers, Narcissa whispering a final warning to her son, the serpent coiling through the ages, waiting for the right pair of voices to awaken it. And then came the silence. All sounds ceased, even the storm above vanished. The world seemed to hold its breath. The rune shattered. Its fragments burst like stars, scattering into the air before dissolving into nothing. The voices stopped. The ink upon the walls faded. The shard in Harry's hand cracked and turned to dust. When the world returned, the Hall of Whispers was dark once more. The only sound was the faint dripping of water from the ceiling. Harry opened his eyes slowly. The ache in his head was unbearable, but the hum of the serpent's presence was gone. Beside him, Draco stirred, breathing raggedly. "Is it over?" Draco whispered. Harry nodded weakly. "Listen." They waited. No whispers, no voices, only stillness, the pure, clean stillness of a world unspoken. Draco managed a faint laugh. "I'd almost forgotten what silence sounded like." Harry helped him sit up. "You all right?" Draco smirked faintly. "I'm alive. For now. That will do." They sat there for a long while, surrounded by the remnants of what had once been the Hollow's last echo. The walls of the chamber were scarred, the runes melted into the stone, but no trace of green light remained. At last Harry rose, extending a hand to Draco. "Come on. Let's see the sky." They climbed through the long corridors until at last they emerged once more upon the terrace. The storm had passed. The city stretched beneath them, wet and gleaming in the dawn. No serpents whispered in the wind. No words crawled across the glass. Draco leaned against the railing, staring at the sunrise. "So this is what peace feels like." Harry smiled faintly. "Don't get used to it." Draco chuckled. "You think it's truly gone?" Harry hesitated, looking out toward the horizon. Nothing ever truly disappears, but silence. Silence can hold it at bay. They stood together as the first light of day broke over the Thames, washing away the remnants of the storm. The air smelled of rain and stone and something new, hope, perhaps, or the fragile stillness after a long battle. Draco straightened his collar, that familiar trace of pride returning. "If anyone asks," he said, "let's say we were successful." Harry laughed softly. "For once, I won't argue." As they turned to leave, the wind carried a single faint whisper, soft as breath, harmless now, no more than a memory. It spoke not in Parseltongue, but in the voice of the world itself, quiet and eternal. All words fade, but silence endures. And for the first time in many years, Harry Potter believed it. The days that followed were unlike any Harry had known. For the first time in many years, the air of the wizarding world seemed calm, too calm, as if the very wind hesitated to disturb the silence that had fallen after the breaking of the rune. No more whispers haunted the ministry's halls, no strange languages crept into spells, no serpents stirred in sleep. Yet even as peace returned, Harry knew the world had changed. Something in the nature of magic itself felt lighter, freer, as though the ancient weight of the serpent's will had been lifted at last. The ministry moved swiftly to mend what had been broken. Wards were rebuilt, the vaults resealed, and the Department of Mysteries ordered to destroy every record concerning the Hollow and its tongue. Yet Harry doubted that even their fire could consume it completely. Words were immortal things. They lived wherever they were remembered. Draco stayed close through those final days of reckoning. Together they watched the last of the serpent's remnants burned under ministry supervision, a cold white flame that gave no heat and cast no shadow. When it was done, Draco said nothing, only stood for a while watching the smoke curl into the night. At last he spoke. "You ever wonder what it wanted truly? Sathrael, I mean, beyond all its talk of blood and silence." Harry thought for a long moment. "I think it wanted to be heard, to exist beyond the voice that created it. Maybe that's all evil ever wants, continuance." Draco gave a faint, crooked smile. "Then we did it a kindness, ending it." Harry looked at him sidelong. Perhaps mercy and victory are the same thing in the end. They left London the next morning. For Draco, Wiltshire awaited. Though his family's estate was gone, the land remained, wild and quiet. For Harry, there was the old house in Godric's Hollow and the endless work of the R's office. Yet something in both men had changed, tempered by the silence they had brought into being. 2 weeks later, Harry visited Wiltshire again. The manor's ruins had been cleared, the land overgrown with wildflowers and ivy. The grass whispered in the wind, but the whispers were only wind now. Draco had built a small house near the edge of the wood, modest, white-stoned, with wide windows that looked toward the rising sun. He met Harry at the gate, his sleeves rolled and his hands stained with soil. "Gardening," he said with a wry smile when Harry raised an eyebrow. "It's what one does when one's had enough of serpents and ghosts." Harry laughed softly. "You've changed." Draco shrugged. "Perhaps. Or perhaps I've finally stopped pretending to be something I'm not." They sat together in the garden, the scent of earth and rain around them. For a long time neither spoke. Then Harry said, "I've been thinking about what you said, about the serpent wanting to be heard. Maybe every word we speak gives birth to something, even if we don't mean to. The The danger isn't in the words themselves, but in forgetting they have power. Draco looked toward the horizon where the sky burned gold. So the serpent wins after all. You're still speaking of it. Maybe, Harry said quietly. But not as it wished. Draco smiled faintly. You always need the last word. Occupational hazard. They laughed then, an easy sound, rare and human. The wind stirred the flowers, and the faint sound of leaves filled the air, soft and harmless. Yet that night when Harry returned to his home, the peace he had felt began to fade. Sleep came uneasily. In his dreams he saw again the chamber beneath Hogwarts, cold, vast, its serpentine walls glimmering in darkness. At its center stood the shattered rune, its fragments pulsing faintly. From the broken pieces rose a single thread of light. It did not speak, but it hummed, a low, steady note like the echo of a word never finished. When Harry woke, his scar was aching, not the sharp, burning pain of his youth, but a dull throb like the echo of memory. He touched it absently, staring into the gray dawn beyond his window. Somewhere in the quiet he thought he heard the faintest hiss, not of threat, but of life continuing. He rose and poured himself tea, watching the mist lift from the fields. The world outside was ordinary again. No ghosts, no serpents, no echoes of ancient tongues. And yet the silence held a weight of its own. That day, he met Hermione at the Ministry to finalize the last report on the Hollow affair. She had been instrumental in sealing the records, ensuring the knowledge would not tempt another generation. It's strange, she said, as they stood in the Hall of Records. All those centuries of secrets, gone in a day. You'd think the loss of such knowledge would feel like victory, but instead it feels hollow. Harry smiled faintly at her choice of word. Maybe that's fitting. Some things are meant to be lost. She looked at him keenly. And Draco? He's rebuilding, Harry said, in his own way. We both are. Hermione nodded. You always do, somehow. When she left, Harry lingered a while longer among the shelves. The silence there reminded him of the deep beneath Hogwarts, the stillness that had followed the serpent's final cry. He thought of Dumbledore then, and of all the teachers who had tried to make him understand that magic was not a weapon, but a story told through time, shaped by the will of those who spoke it. He understood now at last. As he turned to go, his gaze caught upon a single unmarked shelf. Upon it rested an unassuming quill and an empty book. Nothing remarkable, just another tool waiting to be used. Yet as he passed, the quill stirred slightly, as if in a faint breeze. For a heartbeat, it seemed to whisper against the parchment, the sound too faint to be certain. Harry paused. The air was utterly still. He shook his head, smiling at his own nerves, and walked on. Outside, the sun had risen higher, warm and gold against the glass of the Ministry dome. He thought of Draco's garden, of the silence of the world reborn, and the small, fragile piece they had wrestled from the jaws of something ancient. Maybe the serpent was gone forever. Maybe not. But as Harry walked into the light of morning, he found he no longer feared the answer. Some things were meant to sleep, and some stories, once told, were content to fade into legend. The world, for now, was quiet. And for the first time since boyhood, Harry Potter let the silence stay. The end.